Recording in progress.
All right. Is that right? Hey, thank you all so much for coming and being a part of this Lunch and Learn. I really feel like other than anything that we do talking about leads, creating, converting leads, this is probably the second most important seminar that I do, literally, is the 6 steps to financial freedom, how to pay off debt, grow your net worth, and retire wealthy. Because obviously, creating and converting leads, that's going to, increase your revenue. But, looking at, this plan is going to help you build wealth in your life. So let's see here. All right, so my story. I started with this coaching company in 2016. Before I got into mortgages, I was in the ministry, so we were never in a situation where we had a ton of money. In 2016, I probably had $60,000 to $70,000 worth of unsecured debt. And I do remember in 2015 having to do a debt consolidation refinance to get my debt to income ratio where it needed to be to buy a van, so that my wife and myself and my wife and our family could go down to Florida, where my mother-in-law was in the process of passing away. So fast forward now, out of credit card debt and building net worth. And so it isn't all about hey, what I've done. It's really about the fact that if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? So 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 50% of the workforce has no pension. So, basically they're simply relying on either Social Security or, whatever they have in the bank to for their retirement. When Social Security was first created, the average life expectancy was 62 years old. Now that number is more like the 80s, which is good. People are living longer. But what was meant to be just kind of a short-term stopgap is a lot of people are looking at that for long-term retirement income, which means that 62% of Americans retire on less than $10,000 worth of income in a year. 55% of Americans always or sometimes worry about their money. 75% of Americans fear they're not saving enough money for retirement. But with a proven plan, you're able to pay off debt, create wealth, retire comfortably, and leave a legacy for your family. The Bible says that a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children after them. So there's a way to do that. And this plan I'm going to be talking with you about today, hundreds of people have followed these 6 steps and have literally changed their lives. So the 6 steps to financial freedom. Number 1, track every dollar. Okay. A lot of times people get very emotional about money. We work too many hours, so we go and spend money, or we're feeling like we're neglecting our kids, so we spend money on them. All of these things. Money doesn't have to be emotional. Money can really be tactical, and it starts with tracking every dollar. This first step is probably the hardest part of this whole program, but once you understand this and get this dialed in, then everything else falls in place and you can really start moving. So how do we track every dollar? Okay, so we want to make sure there's no mystery money. It's okay to have allowance, but plan for that every month, and you have that cash, your spouse has the cash, and you can kind of do with it whatever you want. But everything else goes on your budget. So underneath the survey form, I've included a copy of the personal family budget. There's an example there. This is not me, but it is an example of how to fill this out. There's also a blank one there, and I have one in Excel that I can send you via the email. And if anybody wants to sit down and go through this further, let me know. We can have a one-on-one appointment and go through all of these things. So you want to budget every month, and you want to keep track of your dollars by having 2 credit cards, one for business, one for personal. Okay, so if any business expense obviously goes on the business card, any personal expense goes on the personal card, they're paid off every month. Now, you might be saying, well, I've got credit cards that are not paid off. Okay, so we set those aside. We're going to pay those off in the next 18 to 24 months. And you're going to just run all of your expenses through 2 clean credit cards. And you want to have a limit that will actually shut you off. Okay, so depending on your income, maybe that limit is 3,000, maybe that limit is 5,000, but you want it to be something where when you go and you run the credit card and it declines it, okay, I'm out of money. Now I need to eat rice and beans for the rest of the month or whatever I'm doing. So this budget form here, there's 5 columns, and my coach at the core used these same 5 columns to go from $70,000 in debt in 1986 to now he's got, I think, $56 million in the bank or something like that. So just doing this form every month has transformed his life. So you start off with column 5. Okay, so it kind of looks a little strange to start at the end, but really it's kind of the beginning, because that column 5 is all the money that you're getting in the month. So that's your net income. So that for a realtor, that is after your gross revenue, after expenses, after you set aside money to pay Uncle Sam, the money that you actually have coming into your checking account that is yours to spend goes in number 5, total paychecks. And that's anything that you get. So birthday money that comes in, a tax refund that comes in, laugh out loud, taxes are in another column, whatever it is that you get goes in column 5. So you total up all of that, that is your net income for the month. Column 1, you're just going to list all of your bills. Okay, so every credit card that you owe, groceries, lawn care, dry cleaning, whatever it is, you can see all of there. They've got different examples on that. So that the name of the bills, if you have a loan, so like your house payment, you want to put down there how much you still owe on the house. Your car payment, how much you still owe on the car. Credit cards, those kinds of things there. And so the name of your bills, column 1. Column 2 is your minimum payment on all of your bills. The reason why you want to do that is the bottom of column 2 is literally your survival number. How much does it take every month for you to pay all of your bills and not fall behind? Okay, we want to know that because we'll talk about that later. Column 3 is the total amount that you paid in all of your bills. And then column 4 is how much you end up saving every month. So we'll talk about that here moving forward as well. But so just a very simple form, but you're tracking every dollar in, every dollar out. So at the end of the month, or when you're done doing your budget here, your column number 5 will match your column number 3, because you're either spending all of your money on your bills, or you are spending some on your bills and you're saving others. But every dollar needs to be tracked. Every dollar has a name. We have 2 bank accounts, okay? And they're all the same bank, and it doesn't matter which bank, as long as it's a bank that's convenient for you. A lot of people like the big banks like Chase or Bank of America because they have ATMs all over the place. Other people like local banks because they like to support the local economy. It doesn't really matter as long as you have all your money in one place. So you have a checking account to pay all of your bills, and then a money market, which is your float account. Okay, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. All right, so with the checking account, you're wanting to pretty much keep that at like $100. After you pay all of your bills, you're going to transfer what's left into your money market, and then you're going to leave very little in your checking account, because what happens is a lot of times when people live out of their checking account, they don't have any money because they feel like, oh, the money is there, I'm going to spend it, and this helps take it out of there. All right, so step 2 is pay off all revolving debt. So if you have credit card debt, your 6 steps to financial freedom are really 2 steps. Okay, you're going to be tracking every dollar, and then you're going to be paying off all your debt. Okay, the reason why is probably the greatest threat to people having wealth in America is credit cards. Is anybody familiar with the rule of 72? Yeah. So if you take the interest rate on your credit card or, on any kind of loan, and you divide 72 by that number, you get the number of years it takes for that money to double. So if you have a 24% interest credit card, and that you carry a balance on, you're paying for that meal every 3 years. You're paying for that dress every 3 years, or that suit every 3 years. Okay, so that's eating a ton of your money. So you want to get rid of all the revolving debt. And I, personal testimony is that once you get rid of credit card debt, your ability to cash flow goes through the roof. Your ability to save money goes through the roof. It's really kind of crazy, but it's true. All right, so you want to pay off all revolving debt. How do we do that? Well, our plan is that we're going to save 20% every month. So when you look at column 5, is the total money that you brought in, your net, and then whatever you pay extra on your bills over the minimum balance, or like your debts over the minimum balance, or whatever you put in the money market or your 401k goes in that column number 4, and that's saving. So that column number, that number 4 number, should be a minimum of 20% of column 5. So savings is, like I said, paying additional money on debt. So if you owe $50 on your credit card and you pay $150, you've saved $100. If you don't have credit card debt and you're putting money in your float account, obviously that's savings as well. If you're investing in a 401k or an IRA or a CODA SEP or something like that, obviously that is savings as well. And the nice thing about that comes out pre-tax. So, that can be numbers that's in column 4 that's not accounted for in column 5. So, maybe a 10% withholding on your 401k could end up being 13 or 14% of your net income. All right, how do you pay off debt? So we use the debt snowball, okay, which means that you put all of your debts from lowest to biggest, and you're making the minimum payments on all of your debts because you don't want to fall behind. You want to be a person of integrity. But extra money that you have coming in every month, you're paying on your smallest debt until that one is paid off. And then you just roll it on to the next one and on to the next one. So depending on where you are in your debt journey, it might take 18 months, it might take 24 months to pay off all your debt. But it's in 18 to 24 months, you will have spent 18 or 24 months. Why not get debt free, right? So it's slow but steady. But that's really any good plan is not something that happens overnight. It's something that you commit to and you work on a regular basis, and you end up with great results. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about what has the most interest or anything like that. You just simply crank out those smaller debts, keep rolling it until you get it all done. End of the day, where you really want to be is a house payment and maybe one car payment. Everything else should be free and clear. Unless you buy a zero-turn mower on 0% interest for 4 years, that comes with insurance. So I have to ask the coach about that. But anyway, step 3, build out your float account. Okay, so you're tracking every dollar. You paid off all of your debt except for your house and a car, and you want to build out that float account. Okay, we'll say, well, what's a float account? Float account is that money market account that you have at your bank. Everything beyond your bills gets swept into the float account every month. And you need to find your survival number. So you take column number 2, your minimum payments on all of your bills and the other things that you buy, like food and groceries and dry cleaning, all that. You have a total in this example, it's $6,760. So you take that total, multiply it by 3, and then it gives you the float account balance you're supposed to have. And in this case, it is $20,000. And so, this person needs to have $20,000 in their float account for, a 3-month of cushion. And what do you do with the float account? Well, what happens if your water heater goes out, or your washer or dryer goes out, or your car needs to be repaired, or there's, Christmas comes around? You take money out of the float account, and then you put it back in because it floats. It goes up, it goes down, depending on what you need it for. But you want to keep 3 months of your expenses in there in your money market account liquid. It may not be something that you can get to on a moment's notice, but within a day, generally you can get money out of there. There's rules. Every bank's a little bit different on that, but you get certain number of withdrawals every month or every year, and all of those things before you're penalized. Pretty much just keep putting money in there, and then you take it out on the rare occasions that you need it. Step number 4 is max out your retirement. Okay, so why do we want to do this? It's tax deferred savings. Okay, so depending on your tax bracket, with money that you're putting in a 401k if you're W-2'd, or money that you're putting into a self-employed retirement vehicle, CODICEP, something like that, you're saving your taxes. So that can be a 30 to 35% return on investment, even if your company doesn't match it. Some people are like, well, I don't want to put money in the 401k, my company doesn't match it. Well, you're throwing away 30 to 35% return because your company is not going to match 4% of that or 3% of that or whatever that they do. Yes. There's different scenarios on that. The Roth does grow tax-free. It would probably, and I'm not a tax accountant or anything like that, but I would say depending on what your tax rate is now compared to what you think your tax rate is going to be when you retire, because you're paying tax on the Roth. You're paying, Roth is after-tax money, so you're paying 30-35% on the money to put in there to grow tax-free. Whereas if you put it into a tax-deferred vehicle, you're making that 30 to 35%, depending on what your income is going to look like when you retire, and how much you're going to be required to take out of that IRA, CODICEP, or whatever when you hit retirement age. It may be a better idea to do it tax deferred as opposed to do it as a Roth. But there's different theories on that, and as long as you're saving. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I would say, I don't know if you have it on the next slide here, but there's an example that we have of actually, like, if you're maxing out your 401k, what that means in dollar signs.
Oh.
So if you're maxing your 401k at like 19.5 per year, your tax bracket is 35%. You're saving like $7 grand in taxes, and so that will compound over time a little bit too. And then I think that it just depends on what your tax bracket may be when you retire. But there's one thing that Americans vote for: it's seniors with no taxes. So that's my thought.
Okay, so sounds good. But yeah, I mean, there's that's a good question. I mean, but the important thing though is that you're saving that 20%, whether you're putting it in a, I pay the taxes on it and put it in something that's going to grow tax-free like the Roth, or I'm putting it in my 401k. Saving makes a difference, which is that wealth accumulator right here, right? So there's a power of compound interest. If you save $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. Multiplied by 20 years, you would have saved $240,000. But if you get a 7% rate of return, that money is going to double every 10 years. So that $240,000 that you put aside by putting $1,000 a month is $960,000 in 20 years. If you do $5,000 a month, so $60,000 a year, that's $1.2 million you've saved, but it ends up being $3.6 million at the end of 20 years. Okay. A lot of people have crazy ideas about how people get rich, right? They think, oh, this person inherited this money or they won the lottery. 80% of the people that are millionaires in America or better, did not inherit a dime, did not win the lottery. They just did, they did this plan or a plan very similar for just a long time. And then step 5. So once you get to the point where, you have all of your debt paid off, you have your float account, you've maxed out your 401k or your CODICEP. And again, talk with your tax person, talk with your financial planner about, their thoughts on tax deferred and all of those kinds of things. And I know there's a limit on the 401k. I know there's a limit on the CODICEP, but once you max those out, then you want to be investing in individual stocks. So, maybe some money market funds. which are going to be, they're going to take, you're buying a little bit of a whole bunch of stocks, being kind of diversified, or you might buy some individual stocks, things like, and by no means recommendation, I'm not telling you to go out. I have no insider trading, anything like that. Yes, but Amazon, okay, Coca-Cola, Apple, Ford, Lululemon. Really the thing about this is, like, you want to buy stocks of things that you like and that you use, right? Because a lot of people think, well, I'll just try to figure out what the next great thing is going to be, and all you have to do is say, hey, what do I like? What do I believe in? What's a solid company I can invest in there? And right now, there's a lot of reasons for it, but assets are just going up in value. So whenever you buy in right now, it's going to be worth more. And if you buy and hold assets, whether it's stocks, bonds, real estate, if you hold them long enough, you're still gonna make money. Everybody that's anytime someone bought a house, if they held it for 10 years, they made money on that house, even when you consider the crash. Okay, so we're not looking at something to get quick. We're not day traders. We're looking to invest in companies, have ownership in companies that are going to continue to grow and produce and make money. And all right, so the wealth accumulation wheel. This is how 80+% of Americans that are wealthy got wealthy. Number one, they invested in primary residential real estate. And by the way, every time we do a pre-approval consultation with someone, we're showing them this slide right here. And because they need to know, why it is that you want to buy a house, because it's one of the greatest ways to grow your wealth, because you got to live somewhere. You got to pay something generally to live somewhere, unless you're going to live in your mom's basement, for the rest of your life. But we don't want to do that. So you buy a primary luxury real estate 3 times your income. Okay, so you don't want to stretch yourself too far and be house poor. But we just know that in real dollars, a $400,000 house is going to appreciate at a bigger dollar level than a $150,000 house. And some of those lower price houses may be in an area where they're not going to see that kind of return. Okay. Number 2, you want to have your float account, 25,000 or more in liquid reserves, so that if you have a bad month, if your car breaks down, if your water heater goes out, or you have a plumbing issue, you don't have to run to a credit card, you don't have to get a loan. You have your float account to take care of it. And then you max out your IRA, 401k, mutual funds, and then you invest in stocks. And that's how again, the vast majority of people that have gotten wealthy in America did it just this way. And which means that we can do it too. Okay. Generally, if someone else can do something, we can. Back in the day, people thought that running a mile in under 4 minutes was just an impossible task, until a guy named Roger Bannister did it. And then once Roger Bannister did it, then all of a sudden all these other people could do it. Why? Because they saw that it was possible. Okay, we see that people in America can grow their wealth, and so because people can, we can as well. Step 6 is to prepay your mortgage. 2 reasons why you want to do this, and it depends on your age. Okay, for those of us who get confused, for people that are 35 instead of being the actual age that I am, you want to prepay your mortgage because it helps you practice for a higher house payment. What if you want to move up in a house in the next year to 2 to 3 years? The best way to get used to doing that is to pay more on your current mortgage. What it does is it gets you used to writing a bigger check for your house every month, but 2, it's paying down that principal. So when you do go to sell, not only do you get that amazing appreciation gain that we've been seeing over the last couple of years here, but you're also going to be getting all of that money that you put in above your payment, because you're paying down your principal. And again, you should always have a house 3 times your income. That way you're not stretching too much, but you're also at that level where your house is going to be increasing in value, and you're maximizing the appreciation. And then another reason to prepay your mortgage is when you hit your 60s, you want to pay off that house. Okay. I do, not only do I help people purchase homes, I help people refinance homes. Okay. I'll help anybody at any time. And I do enjoy helping seniors save money. But at the same time, I always feel kind of sad when there's someone that is in retirement taking out a 30-year mortgage, because I know that they're never going to pay that off. They're never going to own their home. I mean, if you have a paid off home, you still have to pay, rent to the state for property taxes and those kinds of things, which is another lunch and learn topic maybe. But, it's like we want to get to the point where, where our house is free and clear, where we don't have any debts. So, imagine, financial freedom to me is, we have a paid off home. So all we're doing is paying the taxes and insurance, right? Because you want to have insurance. You don't want, anything bad to happen to your house that's not taken care of. If you had 3 to 4 million in the bank and a paid off home, would your retirement be different? Would your life be different? Absolutely, right? And the thing of it is like for all of us, really, this is within reach. We kind of tend to think, oh, well, becoming a millionaire, that's like, lifestyle and the rich and famous stuff. That's, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates things. It's like, no, there's a lot of average people out there that have a lot of money, that have built a lot of wealth. They didn't do it overnight, and they didn't do it being flashy. They're not the ones that are, generally riding around the Teslas. There's a book, by Stanley that talks about, what these rich people look like, the millionaire next door, and they don't look like what you think they would look like. But the truth of the matter is that, we can all attain to that. So cool. So what are you willing to do now to make this future a reality? I'm going to give you all the tools. I'm going to give you the forums. We have some other things here that are kind of recap what we talked about. And again, if you look through all of this, I'm going to post the video to Facebook as well, so you can watch the video again. If you have any questions or would like to get a one-on-one and talk about this, be more than happy to do that. Okay, so because I really want to help. I really want to help people grow wealth. A lot of people think that I'm simply in the business of helping people, get a mortgage to buy a house. I don't really see it that way at all. I mean, yes, we do help people get mortgages in order to buy houses, but really I see myself as someone that's helping people grow their wealth, to create wealth. Yes, use leverage to get it started in the beginning, but we always, when you close, I tell people that's when my job really starts, because I've helped you create this big debt. Now my job is to help you manage that debt and grow wealth. And so that's what we want to do. Cool. Any questions? Yes. Oh. The wealth wheel, yes. What's that?
So what was the example you gave was everyone investing $5,000 for, was it 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
And you lost 3.6 million.
Yep.
Invested. Cool. So I'm going to take a stab in the dark here and say that all of our average commissions probably for you guys is around $5,000, right? The average commission, or is it like $3,000 or
like average home or?
Yeah, the average home you sell.
Sure. I mean, are we talking,
Right.
or average commission?
If you take home.
I would say, call it, 35. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if you showed this wealth accumulation wheel to every single one of your clients, because nobody else is doing this, probably get an extra deal per month, right?
Sure.
Which you then just take that, you reinvest it, and boom, that's where you get your plus money from.
Yeah, actually, we probably expedited a couple of people, looking for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It came down to explaining that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But we have this, and then we also in our pre-approval consultation talk with them about the difference between renting and owning and what that does to their net worth. Because we want to create a sense of urgency in people's lives to buy a home, not because we're trying to push them to do something that's not good for them, but because we realize that in this market, every day that you don't own a home, you're falling farther and farther behind. Even Dave Ramsey, I saw a video that he had where he was talking to someone. They're like, well, I'm thinking about selling my house and then living with family for a couple months and then buying something different. He's like, I'm fine with you selling your house as long as you buy another house the same time you sell it. Because he's like, the time that you're spending living with your family, you're losing money in this market. And so, that's the truth, right? We got to create a sense of urgency because they're falling behind. And with the inventory situation that we have, it's not going to get any better for a while. So we want to encourage folks that I actually have a client, probably been working with him maybe 2 years. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I ran his credit, I probably wouldn't need to work for a month, right? But he had the opportunity to buy a house about 1.5 years ago, and he walked away from it because, in his words, the seller would only go $5,000 off the listing price, so I wasn't going to pay that much for it. Like, if we would have bought that house 1.5 years ago, he'd be sitting on $40,000 or $50,000 right now. That $5,000 he's quibbling over, 10 times what he gave up. And now he realizes it, but now he's trying to put in strong offers and getting beat because that's just the market that we're in. So we want people to know that real estate is the first key to growing wealth. I mean, but you got to be ready. You can't you're telling people all the time. It's like you need credit, you need cash, because it's just the market that we're in. We'll be there for a while. Cool. Other questions?
So you were saying you count when you pay extra on whatever bill.
Yeah.
You would put that extra in the save column.
Yes. Yep. So if your mortgage is $1,200 a month and you paid $1,500, you save $300 because you're paying towards the principal. Or if your car payment is $250 a month and you paid $500, you save $250. And then that's really how we do things. It's there's different plans, and I'm not saying this is the only plan. This is the one that we use. But so cars, for example, you buy a 2-year-old car. Why? Because most of the depreciation has already happened. You put it on a 5 or 6 year loan with 0 or very little interest, and then you prepay it. So you pay it off in 2 years, you drive it for 5, you got 3 years without a car payment, and you're just socking money away. Other people say pay cash for cars. That's okay. It's just a different plan, but you're saving anytime you're paying more than your minimum. Do you have a question?
So let's say, you pay off your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you put your money, like your extra savings, towards like paying off the investment property or the car, or would it be more beneficial to stock it into your home?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would probably pay, maybe pay extra on the car, but put as much as you can in investments, right now, because that, your return on investment on, real estate is much higher the less money you actually have into it. So if you pay off your rental property, then you're not paying any mortgage or whatever on all of that, but your renters are generally doing that as well. So I would probably, again, not being a tax attorney or anything like that, but I would say, that's a write-off, so you're not paying taxes on that money, where you can put money into an investment vehicle that is going to be getting way more than what the increase in value on a rental property is going to be. But I am a fan of paying cars off in a couple of years instead of 6, too.
Everyone's car's going up in value right now.
I know, right?
Yes, you thought about selling mine, but,
Right, right. Yeah, it is. It's a crazy world because you can't get chips for whatever reason, you know. So, all right. Well, thank you all.
I was thinking about, well, I was gonna get that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I live close enough to this place that I would legit ride a moped. If it wasn't for, the 7 months of winter.
Yeah, I